I'm Will Hedrick.
And I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps, a Witcher podcast.
WitcherCast.
WitcherCast 2019 still. Just barely. Dude. Tomorrow's the end of the year.
Have you been seeing a lot of 2020 things anywhere?
Not really.
Yeah, I just have seen it a little bit at our store because it's like, bring in 2020, like, on the way.
But, I mean, your business is a party business.
Right, yeah. So they're planning for New Year's. We're not like,
bring in 2020, get your new
Switch.
computer.
Yeah.
And we're not, at least, and I also don't work on the sales floor. So if there are promotional materials out there that say that, I don't see them. So.
Yeah, somebody would have to hit you with the, like, see you next year joke
right,
to really get a taste of 2020. I did see something, too, that was, like, kind of sad, so sorry to bring like a bummer into the podcast, but it was like, want to make it to 2020, don't drive drunk. It's just like, damn, okay.
Right.
Like, I get it, don't drive drunk.
In the past like 4 or 5 years, they've gotten a little bit more heavy with the anti-drinking and driving messaging, which is good. It should be more harsh. It's super harsh in Europe.
I mean, they gave us $1,000 to talk about it, so that's why we're bringing it up.
Yeah, right.
They reached out to everybody.
This episode brought to you by MAD.
Yeah, men.
Mothers
and
Against
mothers
Drunk Driving.
Just kidding.
The only 2020, like real 2020 referencing that I've seen was just yesterday during football because it was the last Sunday football of the regular season of the decade.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool, yeah.
And so they kept talking about it in like Sunday Night Football for game 256. They were like, this is the last game of regular season NFL for the decade. And it was a really important game too. And so, there's a bunch of weight to it, and they're giving weight to it by saying decade, and it's also the 100th year of the NFL, so it's all of there's a lot of symmetry time-wise going with this season.
Wow, the NFL's been around since 1919.
Well, the NFL, yes, has been around for 100 years, not as we know it, because it was its own league for a while, and then the AFL was started later as like a competitor league. But not taking it as seriously because they had less money.
Yeah.
And then at some point, they through a bunch of talks, they decided to merge. And then the first year of the NFL as we know it was 50 years ago.
Oh, okay. And I'm sure it was broadcast then.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Something like that. It was 1960, I think. I should know this. I know this, but I just can't think of it right now. But anyways, so...
That's cool.
Yeah, the NFL's been around for a long time.
Yeah. Have I told you about this new sport that I was watching the other day on YouTube?
Is it more lumberjack stuff?
No, that would be good. That would be pretty good, having talked about like flannels for 5 minutes before opening the show. But no, it's this sport. It's World Chase Tag, and it's these guys that are really good at like parkour, and they build.
I have seen.
They build like a
gymnast.
They build like a jungle gym that they have to like run through, and you get a point if you can avoid somebody for 20 seconds. But you have to catch somebody to get the chance to evade, and and they like everybody has a team of 5, and America made it to the finals, which is crazy because French are really renowned for parkour. Just when Reed was doing parkour, I learned a lot about it, and I know the French are really into it. They've been doing parkour forever, and I just know in like Europe and the UK and stuff, like just with all the building styles and everything being closer together, I think it not only allows for more parkour style things to happen just in the city, but I think it's been around, for their history is also a lot longer than ours too. So I'm sure it's been around for a while since. I'm sure since the cities were around. I doubt they called it parkour in like the Assassin's Creed days when we're running around in Assassin's Creed.
Like a thief running around on the roofs and stuff like that. That definitely all comes from something.
Yeah, and it was just it is fun. It was fun watching them, and I that's like the only sport I watch. So when the word sport came up just now, I was like, "Oh, I got to tell Will about this sport that I'm watching now."
I feel like I've seen a video of that, and I was like, "This is really interesting, just seeing them move." But this is really dumb.
Yeah, they're very smooth, and at least the really good ones. And I guess the reason I liked it is because like I guess anybody could watch it. We've all played tag, and so that was the fun part. And then I guess just trying to. I obviously didn't really do parkour or anything. I don't know why I said obviously, but I didn't do parkour. And just watching Reed do it a little bit and kind of seeing some of the stuff they did, it was just and kind of like blew my mind a little bit, just like how quickly and fluidly and strong these guys are.
Obviously very skilled.
Yeah. And just the fact that it's called tag, I think gets a little bit of a I mean, they're not going to call it World Chase Parkour or anything, you know, but that is pretty much what it is, you know, and I think that's probably why I like it too. It's just very weird sport. I kind of knew a little bit about it, even though I didn't know the sport going in, and then it's just super relatable.
It's super easy to understand the mechanics.
Exactly.
It's tag. And there's obstacles.
I also got like 200 likes on my comment, so
nice.
I'm pretty. And they said
that's way more likes than I've ever gotten on anything.
They said thanks,
combined.
Jordan. They replied to me too. World Chase Tag YouTube. So if you go to the finals and you find my comment, go ahead and like it, so I can feel good about saying something people like.
Right.
But yeah. So how have you liked The Witcher? To get down to the business,
I think it's really good.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Okay.
There are definitely problems with it. It's the first season.
Yes. And I'm sure that they're probably going to get a lot more money the second season, just because I feel like everybody's watching it, whether they like it or not, you know?
Absolutely. And I think it's like I mentioned going, you know, into the episodes before we started covering the show. I would have guaranteed anybody that as you opened up Netflix, there were banners saying coming soon to Netflix, The Witcher, starring Henry Cavill. So I'm sure that everybody's watching it.
Yeah, even my mom told me like, "Hey, I started watching this new show, The Witcher. I don't know if I feel like you would like it." And she, for the longest time, no, not for the longest time, she liked Game of Thrones, but didn't like the dragons. Like she thought that was stupid.
Okay, yeah.
So like, I guess for me to see her jumping into a fantasy is kind of like, oh, okay, did Game of Thrones get you, or are you just watching it because you know I'll like it and we can talk about it?
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. But I guess to your point, you know, there was the banner, I'm sure, and it made my mom even click and watch it. And,
right.
And so that's pretty cool. Obviously, they're doing good, at least marketing, and like we've been saying, I think that they're making it very palatable for an audience that doesn't know about the show.
I think they're definitely targeting the greater audience, the uninitiated, because, and like we talked about maybe last episode or an episode before, the inbuilt crowd of the people who play the games and the people who read the books is literally a large number in the way that 100 is much larger than 1, but it's nothing compared to, you know, what the viewership that they would need to make the money that they would need to justify doing more. And so they have to make a lot of decisions that you make whenever you're making a show, and you don't and you care about, you know, it being profitable.
For sure, yeah.
And you don't just have like the full trust and backing of some crazy billionaire who just wants to torch money, you know? And it's just like, yeah, do whatever you want. I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely not happening.
You have to. Yeah. No. Sorry, I had to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I'm not sure if I had a continuing thought. I guess I would say the only, I don't even know if it's an issue that I have with it. It's just confusing to me that it's moving as slow as it is.
Yeah, it does feel like we're only getting the prequels, which we didn't even we've talked about. You know,
aside from the Cirilla stuff, it's literally all we've gotten, and then the new stuff with Yennefer, the backstory.
Yeah,
at least now that she's matched up timeline wise with Geralt, this is all new, or not new, but this is stuff that we've seen. In the books. But yeah, aside from Cirilla dealing with the sacking of Sintra, which we didn't see, we just heard about kind of offhanded in the books. Yeah, and Yennefer getting to, and then, you know, time skip through school, graduating through school, and then getting to the point of being up with Geralt. That's the only stuff that's new, and it's very little. And then every time we see Geralt, it's just one of the short stories from the prequels. Yeah. Which is fine, but now we're 5 episodes in of an 8-episode season.
It does, yeah. I see exactly what you're saying. Like, it does seem like they're taking their sweet time when they could have hopped right into story. Like, if they were, at least story that is like has a far progression. Like all the prequels, you know, they were kind of like this show. It's hopping around storyline, you know, timelines, and I guess I wonder if maybe they'll follow a more chronological storyline once they get to the main story, I guess, you know, quote unquote main story. But for sure, I mean, obviously we read the prequels because we wanted some backstory. So I feel like that's, you know, what they're trying to do is give us some grounding for you know, for what we need to do, or for what we need to know when we get further on. But I don't know.
The thing with, if they had just gone into the first book, into the Blood of Elves, I was thinking about it today. I was like, how does that book start? It starts with Triss. Well, no, it starts with Dandelion singing a ballad at like a gathering of different people, and then they sort of talk, and it's just exposition to say this is what this is the geopolitical, state right now. And then it jumps to Triss Merigold making her way down the pass to Kaer Morhen, and then she runs into Ciri. If you hadn't read any of the prequels, you wouldn't know who any of these people are. Even with having read the prequels, we don't ever meet Triss Merigold in the prequels. Her name just gets mentioned once by Yennefer, and then is also mentioned just in the list of mages that were on Sodden Hill during the fight.
Yeah, because we don't get her until the first book.
Yeah,
so.
But starting a new franchise of any sort, the first character that you meet in that book, you're not going to know who it is. Fair. Yeah. But then Cirilla shows up, and we're supposed to Triss knows who Ciri is, or knows that, but knows that she's she's hanging out with the Witchers and all that sort of stuff. So it kind of just throws you in, and I don't think the show could afford to do that. But it's been like 2 episodes. Not 5.
I honestly did think we were gonna maybe hop into it a little quicker, maybe episode 3 or 4, just kind of get really. I guess I sort of thought they'd do it like we did, just real quickly go over the prequels,
right,
and hit the important.
These are our characters. We've got the 3 that we care about more than anything. We've got Yennefer, Geralt, and Ciri.
Yeah,
give us 2 episodes giving their stories. We don't ever really get Geralt's backstory so far as we've gotten, aside from very brief mentions I was a bastard kid, and then
I liked the little taste we got today that he said he was his mother was a sorceress, which I feel like I should have known that already, but he said it again
there
today.
There was a very short mention of it in one of the in one of the in-betweens of the short stories in Sword of Destiny.
Okay.
Some witch comes across him and helps him heal, and it turns out that it's his mom.
Oh man,
it's very briefly. It was in Sword of Destiny whenever they were going, or maybe not Sword of Destiny, maybe it was Last Wish, I can't remember. But the one where they were going short story and then a chapter of him at a place, and then short story and then a chapter of him in the same place.
Yeah, I think that was last.
It was in Wish. One of those in betweeners.
Okay.
And it was just a very short thing, kind of glossed over in a way.
Yeah.
So that's how I knew going into it or whatever. But yeah, we don't get a ton of Geralt's backstory, which is fine. I don't think we're really supposed to. I don't think that would service his character at all.
No, it's kind of nice having the mystery, even though I would like it because I always like that.
Yeah, you always want more from characters that you want,
yeah.
Right? But sometimes it's not always better for the story being crafted.
And I think you're right. I don't think it helps his character really.
That's what wikis are for,
Yeah, exactly.
For the people who want to get the extra shit. But then also, give us some backstory for Yennefer. That makes sense because we don't know anything about her, and I think it's important to inform that cold, brutal character. And then we do need to see, or the uninitiated needs to see the sacking of Sintra for the sake of knowing how that affects Cirilla.
Yeah,
I think that's important. All that could have been done in 2 episodes.
Yeah, and
I don't think that we need it to be as drawn out as it's been.
Yeah, I think also the story with the law of I can't remember.
The law of surprise.
Thank you. Law of surprise.
The banquet in Sintra when Pavetta gets married off to Urchin, and
I don't think it needed to be in a whole episode. Honestly, I think that could have been a flashback or like a flashback, I guess. Just
to explain this is why Geralt is bound to Ciri.
Exactly.
And that would have been an example of how they could have cut one of these prequel episodes and exactly just fed it in as a flashback so that we understand why Ciri is important, or get, a little bit more.
Yeah. I'm a little biased to cutting that one out because that episode sort of rubbed me a weird way. I think we were talking about it before the show, just that it didn't need to be as serious as it was in the book. I think we decided, but that was
certainly my opinion.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I guess I was ready for, is that it needed to be this serious epic thing where Geralt was like, okay, make sure you realize what you're doing. You're basically asking me if I can have anything, and Witcher code is that I have to make another one.
That's the way that it felt like to me in the book as well.
Yeah.
Was that he was like, okay, anytime somebody offers a witch or something, I have to take the opportunity to get a new recruit. So
and I have to ask you to say it again just to make sure that we're bound by fucking verbal spells or whatever.
And that's what it felt like to me in the moment when I was reading it back then. I was like, okay, I get that. Okay, so this is like some sort of Witcher code.
Right.
When the opportunity is presented, you have to take it to not propagate because he's not, begetting himself a child. He's, whatever. But yeah,
Destiny
to extend the numbers of the Witcherhood. And then, like, as I was thinking about it later, I was like, that just not him sticking to the Witcher code, because there isn't a Witcher code for one.
He just made it.
He mentions it multiple times in the books how there's not one. He just made up his own code and says it's a Witcher's code because that begets respect. But it didn't seem to me. It doesn't seem like Geralt's character to be one that serious, because he's always really fucking snarky. He's like obviously serious, like in the big moments, like in a fight or something like that, or when someone's threatening him. But even when someone's like threatening him, he still makes like a joke here and there. But more than anything, as we've talked about multiple times, he hates Destiny. And he refuses to acknowledge it.
Okay.
And so it just didn't seem, in the book, it seemed more serious than I was expecting from Geralt. And, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the impression that I've had of Geralt with how much he abhors the idea of Destiny.
Yeah.
Why would he then play into it so seriously?
Yeah.
If he had just been like, we're supposed to recruit, say it again.
Yeah.
That sort of attitude.
Yeah.
The way that it came off in the books. And maybe part of it was due to the narration as well. Maybe the delivery of the narration made me think of it in a certain way. It felt like he was taking it extremely seriously in the books.
Yeah.
Where in the show, it felt more like the Geralt that I interpret.
And now that you say the part about like him being, adverse to Destiny in every way,
right.
I kind of forgot that as an element of his character. And then I guess like, the same other side of the same coin, it feels too like, even though he doesn't like Destiny as much as he doesn't like it, he still seems to like acknowledge it.
He definitely believes in it, in spite of himself.
Exactly,
and he's afraid of it.
It's like he's like he died and saw heaven, but he never believed in it or whatever. But he's like, well, now like Constantine, like he knows, but he didn't believe, Yeah. And so he's just like, I freaking hate it, but I know that it's real. So because even in The Last Wish, it felt like he made, in the episode and the book, it felt like he knew Destiny mattered on that in The Last Wish, I guess, and it. I don't know if did it feel to you like as, I don't know. I guess maybe in the book I made it to where he bound him and Yennefer together. Like,
that's how I felt like it was in the book as well.
Did it feel like that in the show as much? I didn't really get the vibe that they were necessarily bound together. In the book, but that he seemed like
Yennefer knew what it was that he wished for in the book, because he makes the wish and she's like, Are you sure that's what you want? What have you done? Now I can't leave you, or something like that. And maybe not that exact wording, but something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And the show, she's like, "What did you wish for?" And he just smiles,
asleep. Right? Yeah. Oh, he's asleep.
Yeah, because he had been like awake for like a week or something like that.
Yeah, that was why he started looking for and I like that. I think that's fine. That's a fun. I like the premise of the start of that story. Just he can't sleep, so he's looking for a genie, which
like, I can't fucking sleep.
And
then, well, what was his fucking name? Javier or the Dandelion.
Dandelion, yeah.
His dumbass changed name. Jaskier, yeah. Fucking changed ass name on the show for no reason that we know yet. Maybe they give us a reason, but just call him fucking Dandelion.
Dandelion?
His name. Dandelion.
No, just kidding.
Just call him Dandelion.
Call him something that we're used to hearing.
That's when Henry Cavill would go, Dandelion. Go over here.
Maybe we'll get it as like a fun little like shout out to the games, like because I think what you were saying makes a lot of sense. Like maybe his full name is I already forgot it. Jaskier the Dandelion.
That's his given name or whatever. But he changes his name because one, he's a performer, and maybe everybody's got some fucking past in this fucking universe, right? But maybe he's like, I refuse to be called that name because
for us to accept
my dad or whatever.
For us to accept Yennefer though, and not Dandelion, like they took Jennifer and put a Y, like to name a minstrel after a flower doesn't seem that far fetched either. Like if we should have just gone with it, but no, Yennefer's fine. They could have changed it to Jennifer even, which I think that probably would have made people mad, but because it stays Yennefer throughout the whole story. But even
the etymology of Yennefer might be more at home in a Germanic language as well.
Very true. I didn't even think of that.
Which I've got no way of knowing. I just have to make an assumption that that in the same way that I'm trying to think of a good like an English example. But
I'm just trying to think of another name that like it felt like they just flipped a letter, like Ned for Edmund Stark or whatever.
Eddard.
Thank you, Edmund. Who's Edmund that I was thinking of?
Right.
Yeah, Eddard, but he goes by Ned or whatever. I was thinking like, I guess that's not exactly.
It was just a weird nickname. In the same way that people call Richard Dick. Mm-hmm. Like that's a strange nickname for that. Yeah, there's no like, there's not a lot of parallels in the letters.
I guess what I was trying to think of, this has no example, but like where you said Richard, it made me think of like if he was King, rather than being King Richard, he would have named the character King like Bickard or whatever, or like or Tickard, something that was like he changes one letter from Richard into something, and then that's the new guy's
that's
name.
What makes it foreign. Yeah, it's just a letter change,
which is what it felt like with Yennefer. Just like a single. And I didn't even think about Germanic etymology of the words or whatever. Like
there might be some root of Yennefer that it presents itself in a real Polish name, for all I know.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of what it is. But I mean, it does seem like kind of like a cop-out name.
I was listening. I told Siri to play some song the other day, and she just completely ignored me and like played this German song. It was called Swish. And I started listening to that, and like the second group that came up was Apache 207, and Bailey has a friend that's German, and she was like, "Hey, do you know Apache 207?" And her friend was like, "Yeah, I know Apache 207." I loved all of their songs, even though I don't understand it. But you spoke German, or you took German. Is like J a pretty common like sound that they do, or like?
They don't have a. J doesn't make a J sound in German. It's a Y sound. It's a
maybe that's okay. Then that might be exactly it. Like you were saying.
The name of the letter J in German is yacht.
Oh. Yeah, that's probably exactly it then. Nice. Yacht. Does it come early in the alphabet, kind of like RJ?
It's in the same position.
Oh, we use
everything is in the same position. They just have
characters?
Different pronunciations for them.
Oh, cool.
There's a couple of additional letters in the German alphabet. One of them is literally just a stand-in for two S's being next to each other. There's so many instances of there being SS in different German words that they were like, well, let's just combine that into a new character.
Okay. Like in Spanish, the double L, but that's a completely different sound. So
that's called an S-set.
Thank you. I did not know that.
The other thing that they added was I can't remember. It doesn't matter. No, never mind. That was just they changed the letter Y in German is called Upsilon.
Upsilon. Yeah. Well, I guess it makes sense they didn't use an Upsilon and they used I forgot what J was called. Yacht. Yacht. I was close. I thought it was yacht. Yacht. So I guess it makes sense they'd use an Upsilon, or they'd use the yacht instead of an Upsilon. Using the terms like I know them now. Yeah. I mean, so I guess I started this. These 3 episodes going in like thinking, all right, I cannot wait for more of the show. We had just started. We had just been watching it, or talking about it, last Monday, and then I started watching it Tuesday, and it must be something I'm doing when I'm watching it, but like I'm not like mixing and like spreading my my attention span or anything. Like I'm not doing anything really other than watching, and like even if, like I was saying earlier, like I don't watch it, I don't mess with my phone really if I'm watching it on TV, or if I'm watching it on my phone, like I don't mess with anything, right. And there's just a few things that like I kept feeling like I was missing, and they don't really matter, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. Like I don't need to know how long Yennefer was at school. But it felt to me just like it went so quickly. Like I didn't even see her go to school, and the next thing you know, she's conjuring like a whole 12 to 15 people that are like watching her perform like intercourse, and then whenever they both climax, they give her the applause and stuff, and he was like, oh, that's a nice touch. Like apparently maybe she had done it before, or maybe he didn't see that coming. I don't know,
right?
Because he even says like, can they do anything other than just watch? And then she's like, shut up. Kind of that. She said that with her attitude, not really verbally, but I don't know. That was a little thing that I guess I maybe. And maybe we'll see it coming up soon. It's not like they still don't jump around timeline-wise.
It is indicative of the odd pacing that the show is taking.
Yeah.
Which, like we just previously talked about how there's 5 episodes into an 8-episode season, and we're still doing prequel stuff instead of jumping into the actual story of the saga. And part of that, it's like they know that they don't have a ton of time to be spending all this time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
And so they're rushing. They rushed Yennefer's education, or didn't make it supremely obvious that there was a time skip. And so like she gets to school, we don't see hardly anything of the school, and then now she's graduating because we gotta fucking move on.
Right.
But then why are we still doing 5 episodes?
Yeah.
It's like fighting itself in its attitude to how they need to progress through the story. So it's interesting to me. That being said, I'm enjoying the show, and I'm excited for the next episode. Like I watched episodes 3 and 4 at the same time, and then I was like, no, Will, hold off on episode 5. Save that for a couple more days or whatever, and I'm excited to watch the last 3 episodes.
Me too. I'm looking forward to watching the last 3.
It's just super weird. Also,
it maybe I'm just like dumb in it's hard for me to understand people the first time they say something, but like they use pretty big words in this show. And like
one of the things that Geralt does is constantly, certainly whenever he's starting to argue with somebody, is he uses these giant words, and it's almost like he's mocking them. Yeah. Which is part of, I think that almost everybody in this universe is really funny. From like the idiots who are just funny because they're dumb idiots to the people that we care about. They're all really smart, and they're fucking like just biting each other. They're all super witty. And
I can see that.
Geralt exhibits that most frequently through using unnecessarily complicated words in very quick succession all the time. Yeah. In fact, in this last chapter that we read, when we do the reading episode later, Dijkstra, the spy, calls him out on that, and he's like, "Don't fucking make these jokes with your big ass words right now. This is serious business."
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we were talking about it earlier, and I was like, I don't really know because I was thinking it was super serious, and the more I guess I think about it, I do remember thinking like, that because like we were saying, even in the books, just this reading that we just did, he meets some people and he makes jokes to himself that he's like, oh, that probably didn't go over super well, but right, I could still think, like, I still thought it was funny. The situation is funny, right? And and him putting himself in that situation is pretty funny actually too. So like, I was probably just not thinking about it very hard. I was probably just like on a
the overall universe is definitely dark enough that you don't think about it being silly, very comedic, funny, in your first, second, or maybe even like third thought, whenever you're like, okay, The Witcher, and all these monsters, and everything is fucked up, and everybody is out only for themselves, and blah 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 blah. And then maybe like 5th down the list, once you've interacted with the characters for a long period of time, you'd be like, oh, it's also really funny.
Yeah, they are funny. I guess the one scene I was thinking of in particular, and I was rewatching a little bit. I don't think I rewatched episode 4, but I think because I had made it through some of the 5th episode, and then I ended up rewatching that one last night, and then I rewatched episode 3 again. But it was the witch that was training Yennefer. I forgot her name, but
Tissaia de Vries.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Yeah. I only could remember it because I read the last chapter today.
Nice.
And because we're still there at the witch school, because they're trying to drop Ciri off there or whatever, all of the names of all the sorcerers and sorceresses are coming up constantly. So that's the only reason I remember it.
It's still fresh. Yeah. She said something like the nepotism of that statement is like the stench of the nepotism is something. I don't know.
You couldn't get rid of the stench of that nepotism with the scent of like something that's very strong.
Another big word. Yeah. But it was like, see, I could barely remember and rephrase the sentence, but that was first time I heard it. I was like, I barely know the insult she just said. Like, I don't even know if I understood it. Like, if she had insulted me, I'd be like, I got to figure out what she said later. I got to get mad about that later. But
can you say that again, please?
Yeah. Give me a second take on that. And then watching it again, I was like, okay, I get it now. Like, if I was like, and maybe it's just the fact that I knew the characters better, and I knew she was referencing that guy's niece a little bit clearer, and I wasn't thinking like that as a new piece of information. It was kind of a background information, and maybe that's why it made itself a little more obvious that second time through. But I wonder. I don't think that this was the intent, but I know with like Westworld, like it was all over the place, and there were all these recap videos that like not all of these, but I would watch a video that was like, summing up the show and some things you might have missed and put in the storyline, in the right order to make it a little easier to understand everything, I guess maybe. But I wonder if like that is a thought that ever crosses someone's mind, like not let's make it confusing so they have to rewatch it, but let's make it like how can we put this in a storytelling method that doesn't give them everything all at once and not even give everything in the right order, but when things happen, we can skip around. We don't have to give them every detail leading up to everything. Because I know that is a positive of giving us little tidbits everywhere, is that they don't have to follow Geralt from the Striga to the Dijon. We can hop stories and we can, but I guess I wonder if that is maybe like an interesting storytelling mechanic. Like I wonder if it's going to get a lot more streamlined from whenever it gets into the main series, and maybe they'll do the first 2 books, like Time of Contempt and what was the first one?
Blood of Elves.
Blood of Elves. Maybe they'll do those 2 in the second season or something, all as one, because while we were reading that first book, I felt
wasn't
like
a whole lot that happened.
Right.
You're
yeah.
right,
And even now there's like 30 pages of like everybody hanging out, like, and sure it was important, but not really much happened other than
it was setting some political scenery.
Exactly. Yeah. And obviously the politics and stuff is super important, and I'm learning more and more important too. But
right. I think now that we've got the characters set in the show, who knows? Maybe the next 3 episodes are going to be all fucking prequel stuff too.
Hopping around.
In fact, I read the description for the next episode whenever I was in the middle of closing Netflix, and I can't help myself whenever there's words I read them.
You read them.
It's another
Subtitles.
short story.
Oh, so if I guess it, will you give it to me?
Yes. It's your favorite one.
I was gonna say, is it the Golden Dragon?
Yeah,
one?
it's the Golden Dragon.
Yeah, okay.
So we're getting another episode of short story.
Okay.
And I guess that's because they've done this weird thing where Cirilla leaves the forest in a different fashion, and in a negative fashion, where she's going with a Nilfgaardian spy, the guy who's not the guy, the doppelganger that is disguised as Mousesack.
Yeah, Mousesack.
Yeah, Mousesack. An equally useless item.
Right. The Mousesack and the mouse hat.
Yeah, he's disguised as that druid and is taking her out, and so, presumably towards Nilfgaard, because that's the job that he's taken, which is completely unlike what happens in the book, which is fine.
Yeah.
But now that creates a storyline that has to be resolved somehow, and so maybe that's why we have to have another episode of prequels with Geralt. And this also gives us another opportunity to have a story of another story of Geralt and Yennefer together, because obviously they were together in this short story of the dragon.
Yeah.
But still, like, man, I just feel like we've got to get moving, and we aren't moving anywhere.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of scene setting and character building when. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the point of maybe. I wonder what they would have chosen to do if it was a movie. Like would they have gone as deep into the prequels, or would they have maybe had to touch on it like we were saying, and then really give you?
I feel like the only important prequel stories, from the point of view of having a greater saga that you're trying to tell, is we need the story in Sintra,
right?
Because that tells us. 1, how Cirilla comes into existence, and 2, why Geralt is tied to her.
Right.
And then we need the story of the Djinn, because that gets Yennefer and Geralt to meet, and then also whatever this unknown wish is that supposedly binds them together.
Right.
I think those are the only 2 that are necessary. The Striga is my favorite one.
The Striga
not
was
necessary
cool.
for the overall story. What were the other ones that we saw in the show?
Renfrey.
Renfrey, I think it's informative of Geralt's character, but I don't think important for the overall show.
Yeah, just like you said, it gives us some information why he's the Butcher of Blaviken, and just that he is. He kind of reacts. He said it a few times, I guess, in the reading section. But
going to the end of the world to fight the devil, not fight the devil, but to rid the town of the devil or whatever. for the show made that where he meets Dandelion. It's not where he meets Dandelion, but the show made that for where he meets Dandelion. So important there. But if they were going to change where he meets Dandelion, they could have just thrown it into one of the other ones.
Yeah.
And is informative of the way that elves feel about humans, but that was literally only 30 seconds of the episode, so it could have been 30 seconds of another episode. Right. You know, like, and then I don't remember what the other one was. We've gotten through pretty much all of them.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was another one that was in the
because episode 1 was Renfrey and the Kikimora. Episode 2
felt like it was a lot of Yennefer stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot of Yennefer. The girl. Oh, that was the devil one. Episode 3 is the Striga. Episode 4 is
Vision.
No, that's episode
Vision's 5. Yeah.
So what's 4? 4 is when Yennefer goes through the shit with the queen and the assassin, and then has to get away from that. But Geralt does. Oh, that's Sintra. So,
okay.
The only
so all the stuff that we were thinking.
Yeah. So the first 3 episodes, the short stories that Geralt's are in, while interesting, and one of them being my favorite of the short stories, completely inconsequential to the show as a whole, in my opinion, or the greater arc of the story that The Witcher is about. Anyways. Yeah. It's just weird to me. That's all I can think about is how slow it's moving.
Yeah, it is very weird. It is nice, I guess, for me. I'm going to try and put a positive spin on what I was bitching about. that I do have some rewatch value because I won't necessarily have to wait as long because I can I'll be able to watch it again. Yeah. I do that a lot with anime. Like I'll be waiting for the new episodes to come out and I'll start the whole series back over. And then as I catch back up, it's like 10 more episodes have come out. I'm like, yes, I got it. Yeah. And so that'll be kind of nice because I know I'll have rewatch value. And we've been reading. I even started rereading The Last Wish just because I was like, that didn't happen how I thought it, how I seem to remember it happening. And then I reread it, and I have to remember too that like I can't be one of those fans that's just like, well, it didn't happen like that in the book, right? Because that just ruins the whole experience. Yeah, and I think that's what I was letting myself get to. I was starting to get a little snobby. It's easy to do, yeah. Especially too because there's a lot of details, and I was trying to like pride myself on like, look, dude, you're pretty much studying it with Will. Like you should know these details, and I was kind of like, I know these details. Like, let me guess what's about to happen, or like that didn't happen in the book, and it's like I need to just take it as its own story, and know it's not different, and so I can, with a grain of salt, take it like it's its own retelling. Maybe it's its own.
It's an adaptation,
exactly, and I shouldn't hold it to the same exact, the exact standard of the book because sometimes it doesn't translate well to TV shows like we've talked about plenty of times before. And there's like sheer time amount as well. Yeah, because I can read 4 paragraphs in like 3 minutes, and that's a ton of information. But how do you
translate that to a show? Because even if those 4 paragraphs are just descriptions of the environment, to then be able to show all of that in a coherent image would take way longer than the 4 to 5 minutes it took me to read that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So like the pure logistics of how much you can get done in writing in a time span, or in reading in a time span, and how much you can get done watching in a time span is dramatically different.
Yeah.
Which is like I think the biggest change in the short stories was The Last Wish. As far as like literal changes, like we don't the all the shit that Geralt has to go through getting Dandelion to the town, and how they have to stay overnight in the guardhouse with there's 2 like half elves that kind of help him out, but they know of Yennefer or whatever. Yeah, Yennefer isn't staying at the mayor's house in the book; she's staying at like a merchant's house or something like that. And there's just like all these little details that don't really matter. For some reason, the fight happens at one of the half elves' homes that he had just recently bought and is rebuilding because he wants to turn it into a bar or something like that. Yeah, and in the show, it's happening at the mayor's like town home, or not town home, but like manor across the river. Yeah. So there's a lot of scenery and story beat differences of The Last Wish in the show than from the book. Yeah. More so than the others, I felt like.
This is minor, but I definitely thought that Yennefer made an aphrodisiac potion, not a smoke that she blew in their faces, and made them like horny until she said cut, right, yeah. which was kind of cool for the show. It made it funny when she was like, she yelled out the safe word and everyone had, all the girls like, oh man, just like instantly blasted everybody. Right, yeah. Thought that was kind of funny. Yeah. Obviously they can't make Yennefer like completely Well, I think. Sorry, we talked about that before. I don't even think it specified that she was ugly, just that she was deformed in the it had a hunchback, and so,
right.
I guess I was thinking that like she upgraded her beauty as well, but she could have very well been, beautiful, but just hunchbacked with a funky jaw like she had. I don't know what that diagnosis is of her jaw thing, but jawbreaker mouth, but I mean, and then when they fixed her up, I knew what she was gonna look like,
right?
Because you just take you mentally take the makeup off of her. So, and she was definitely pretty. Just in my head, I had this like almost a devilish version of a concubine, just what you would imagine of like a seductress, like super curvy in every way. Like her clothes, I didn't imagine the way her clothes are in the show, but this is a foreign world with foreign fashion sense, so that can't be a critique, a negative critique or anything. But in my head, it was just like very sexualized and very, and she was sexualized. It's just, I guess, it was a little different in my head, so but I can't really complain about that, I guess, either. I'm just
image of a character is always difficult to see,
for sure.
Whenever you've got the image of the character already in your head,
and
then also if you've already seen an interpretation of that character in another medium, like the games, like in the games, Triss's hair is straight up like an orange. It's like the most like classical stereotype of a ginger ever. And I just kind of, in the books, they do describe her as having chestnut hair. But I just kind of like rolled over that thinking, well, I mean, she's got red fucking hair. It's red as shit.
Yeah.
And then in the show, she's got chestnut colored hair. It's of a red variety, but it's not on fire.
Yeah.
And so whenever I saw that, I was like, oh, that doesn't seem right. But then whenever in this last section of the book we were reading, and it said, and here comes Triss with her chestnut hair, I was like, that is right.
Okay, chestnut, yeah.
I was just going off of the games, which is an exaggeration.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's difficult it can sometimes be difficult to have the image of the character in your head and then they show it in the show and it's not exactly what you were thinking about. You're like, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I had unrealistic expectations too for this transformation, just like I'm sure it would. I mean, obviously it would be mind-blowing to see one day your girlfriend, this girl is hunchbacked and then the next day she's walking in all straight up and sexy, and she did her makeup and got a haircut, it's just okay, like I notice normally coworkers when they get haircuts and put on makeup. So I feel like that would be it made sense why everybody in the show in the show was just like, whoa, like look at this new person. But I guess I already knew she was going to change. So I guess maybe that was something too, is going in not knowing that Yennefer was going to become beautiful. Maybe that would kind of put it in a different light. Because if I thought that maybe she was just going to be like this sort of who is the witch in like the Disney movies that would like, was it in Snow White, like not the Wicked Witch, because I think she was kind of pretty, but like wasn't there like who's the one with like the crooked nose and like the
well, it is Snow White, but that's her in disguise, because the queen is actually very beautiful. In fact, that's the whole thing, is Marimar on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, and she's the fairest until a point where Snow White becomes the fairest, and so that's why she has to kill Snow White. But when she goes to the cottage and gives her the poison apple, she's in disguise as like this old disgusting crone.
And she didn't get an old disgusting crone. She went in disguise as the
Oh,
okay. I guess I never
because it was her stepmother, and so if she had gone as herself, Snow White would have been like, I know who you are. You tried to have me killed already.
I guess maybe that's what I was thinking. No, that's not why. I was about to say that's why I thought it was somebody else. I don't think I knew the story. As we talk about it, I was like, I think I might have been able to tell you.
That was one of my more favorite Disney movies. So I did watch it a lot when I was a kid.
I was going to say, I think I might have been able to give you the beats, but I don't know if I would have been able to tell you that. But that's kind of, I guess, maybe
you were expecting more of a dramatic change.
Exactly. I was kind of maybe thinking sort of a grotesque, like, version. And maybe it came off more like that in only watching the show. If you saw this hunchbacked girl with like that was, in the flea bottom, for lack of a better word, of her town, and then, and she's all just like, just basically like she's lucky she even lived, like, and they didn't kill her when they saw she was deformed. And so maybe that kind of made it easier to accept, like, okay, now that's why she's this protege. Like she's, she's never worried about her beauty. She's always been able to focus and read or whatever. Maybe coming in third party and seeing that like that, it made it easier to see her as this prodigy sorcerer, and like she is. And I could just be making stuff up as I'm going to try and have it make sense. But knowing she was going to transform and be prettier, I guess I just had it in my head that it'd be such a big dramatic transformation.
The lens of this universe where, like, the reason that the sorcerers and sorceresses, pretty themselves up whenever they have the ability to is because they have to be at court where everybody is beautiful. And there's a lot of, stake put on how you look because in times like that, the pretty ones are from good stock, and that's why they're pretty, because they all continue to just be together. You know, the nobles marry off their kids to other nobles' kids, and we all just continue to look really good. Whereas whenever you're a peasant, it's just kind of whatever. And so in that sort of a universe, when you're hunchbacked and you've got the jaw thing, is like, slack jawed or whatever it is that you just would describe that as, medically, I don't know. Yeah. And you're a peasant, you are ugly, one, by virtue of your station, right, and then two, because you don't have a perfect or even like a average body because you have a hunchback. And so then just to literally get rid of that then qualifies you to even try to become part of a higher class.
And then being a sorceress, and I know they kind of think of themselves highly, like on the level of a princess, kind of. Right. Yeah. So. Yeah, like I can.
So through that lens, like you could have relatively pretty bone structure in your face, but you're hunchbacked and you're a peasant,
and you have a growth on. Okay, that makes sense then. Yeah, I'm sure it's just because of the quality of living has gone up that people have just gotten prettier, not the fact that right. I don't think genetics have just magically gotten way better.
We can take showers.
Exactly.
We don't have to smell bad.
Yeah, I don't think our genetics just got insanely better. Probably, I'm sure there were. Yeah, I'm sure there were pretty people everywhere. Just it was harder to find them. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in the lens of the show. So, what do you think? I had a question, I guess, about so when Yennefer got her uterus removed, right? Or what was it?
I assume that's what it was.
Is that only so that she can become beautiful?
They don't seem to say anything about that.
Okay, I had it in my mind that all sorceress, couldn't get pregnant, but then
that's what they make it seem like.
Now I feel
with a couple of exceptions.
Now I feel like if you don't take the route, the becoming pretty route, like if you were already pretty, like I imagine Ciri, if she ever becomes a full sorcerer, I imagine that she won't need really to go through this meeting. The guy, I know I made the joke to you earlier, but the guy looked like Weird Al to me. the Weird Al architect of the body, but like. So if she doesn't need to go, would she then be able to bear children? I just thought that was something that maybe a sorceress couldn't do.
That's definitely a question that is being presented by the show, because they don't describe any of that stuff in the books.
Okay.
So far as we've got.
Yeah, I didn't remember at least either.
They say that just, I don't remember the exact wording, but Yennefer says that, being a sorcerer or a sorceress, being a sorceress, I don't think she says anything but the sorcerers. The sorcerers might still be, potent, but being a sorceress means that you give up the ability to have kids. And with there being maybe a couple of exceptions, just like there's always a couple of exceptions to everything, like Geralt's mom for one.
It seems short of her being able to freeze her eggs, it would happen anyway. Right? Yeah. Like when they run out of years.
Exactly. But then also the transformation in the books, it seemed to me like it was something that you just did to yourself whenever you gained the capacity magically to be able to alter a bone structure,
like everybody would do it. It's just okay.
It was something that when you got to the point where you could change yourself into an image that you want, you then did it. It wasn't like it was part of this graduation ceremony where you get carved up by this surgeon. Which the show presents. So I think that. And then maybe later on in the books we get more details of that process. But up to this point, the way that Yennefer presented it in her, recollection to Ciri about how things go, it doesn't seem like it happens like it did in the show at all.
Okay.
It seemed like a self-inflicted thing that you do. Like once you learn the spell of, setting a bone for a healing purpose, you can then be like, okay, how can I translate this into straightening my spine? And that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
which makes a little bit more sense to me.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that they needed it. They wanted to make something a little bit more spectacular for the show, which cool.
Yeah.
And then it also provides an opportunity to do something gruesome and carve out your uterus so that can be a very hard, definitive answer as to why Yennefer can't have kids.
It was pretty cool watching that happen.
It also makes it something that's taken from her. And so is part of why it's then her motivation to have it back, because she didn't care about it before. But now that she's just cold, hard, bitter person, and she says it several times, I want everything. Now that she's been betrayed by several different people, even like the teacher who gave her the power to become something, she felt like she was betrayed by her because her elven blood got out, and that's why she was going to get reassigned and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, when
so now she's even mad at her, and she's like, I want everything, give me everything. Yeah. She's just fighting everybody.
She's trying to conquer and control the Djin's power in herself, and Geralt's like I'll make the wish for you, what do you want? And she's like, I want everything. Right. I was like, ooh, this girl's crazy.
And so it one provides a shocking image to have someone's uterus carved out, even though that hysterectomy is a procedure that people go through in real life, just not that brutal.
Yeah.
And then it makes it something that's taken from her. It makes it a cost that she is paid as well.
Right.
And so theatrically it does a lot of things. It's completely different than what the book is described.
Okay. I thought I had maybe one more thought. I think it had to do with Ciri. It's not coming to me though. It's okay if it comes up again. I'll run it by you. But I guess just the last. We got 3 more episodes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 more.
Cool. So we know what one will have part of it be about. But how far do you think they might make it into the series? I'd like to think that. We'll have Ciri Ciri and Yennefer and Geralt. At least we'll see the 3 of them interact. Maybe not. Maybe we won't have her go train with Geralt yet. Maybe that'll be where we come in season 2. She'll have been training.
Maybe season 2 starts the way that Blood of Elves starts. Is we see Triss going down a mountain pass, and then Ciri shows up. And and they
might, and in their eyes, they might be making good progress. Like, hey, we knocked out 2 books in one season.
I guarantee you that they've got everything tracked out in the way that they want. I mean, just by the sheer fact that season 2 got renewed, the show got renewed for a second season before the first season aired. Which one is just marketing tactics, like I think we talked about. It's just like, look at how good this show is. We renewed it before it even aired.
I thumb upped it before I watched it, so I could be part of the reason.
But I think that it also is indicative of them, like, okay, we're gonna get a second season, so this is how we pace it out,
Right, and then with people knowing that too, they'll probably be less like.
They're more forgiving for the slow pace, maybe.
Thank you. That's
there's going to be a second season,
say.
So they're deliberately moving in that direction. So
and it'll keep people like Kenneth likes to watch stuff when it's all out. I think so. I think that's why he's holding off on My Hero, and he said he wanted to watch the whole thing as it dropped.
Yeah.
And I think that by maybe promising a second season, but dropping it all at once this first season, I think that might be something that would. That's the programmed viewing we're gonna have to start doing, I guess, is what I'm trying to think. Because he'll sit there and watch the whole thing, but if I watched the whole thing and didn't know if there was gonna be a season 2, I might be upset because I'm sure it's gonna end relatively open ended. That's sort of always the theme. The Last Wish ended with the wish we didn't even know, and then that wasn't the exact last thing that happened, but and it just kind of felt like every book kind of had one of those sort of like open-ended, but there's more to go. Right.
But the prequels were, and we talked about it before, the prequels were just a collection of short stories, and they didn't seem to have any intention of being anything else. It wasn't like Scythe or our interpretation of Scythe, where we thought, well, this is being ended in a way that would be okay, but if it does well enough, it gets a second book, and then you can continue the story. Where that was sort of like hedging your bets in the writing. I feel like the prequels of The Witcher wasn't him like hedging his bets. It was just like, I write these short stories, and now they're a collection, and this makes a book.
Right. I agree. I think that sums it up really well.
I think that the show operating under that same premise is a mistake when thinking about the general Netflix audience viewer, because say that it didn't get renewed for a second season, they're getting presented with this show. This is a new series that's happening. This is taking place of Game of Thrones, and the entire first season ends without anything ever really happening.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, Game of Thrones episode 7, Ned gets killed, and the biggest thing in the show happened.
Right,
the whole war started.
And you can see, that there's a story happening in Game of Thrones, even though there is definitely some jumping around and we have characters, and then what we thought was our main character gets killed at the end of the fucking show.
I'm waiting for that moment.
You can tell that something's going to happen. But if this finishes with just having gone through the short stories, and then the only sort of thing that feels like a through line is Cirilla, I feel like that's not enough for your uninitiated audience member to, without knowing that there's going to be a second season.
I see what you mean, to really make us care. Yeah.
But knowing that there's a second season makes this possible, I guess. But if there wasn't going to be a second season, if, say, it didn't get enough viewership and it got canceled, I feel like your general viewer would be like, well, what the fuck was that all about?
Yeah, what was the deal with The Witcher?
But I don't know. Whatever. I feel like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I think the show is good. I think that Henry Cavill is an excellent Geralt.
Yeah, he's grown on me a lot more. I think I might have complained about him being too handsome last week. But like and a little less like rugged and like I had imagined. But
I didn't have that hurdle because he's pretty handsome in the games, so I was already used to that idea.
Handsome one. And honestly, watching it more and rewatching stuff that I had seen, it just I remember I was thinking like, okay, no, he's pretty rugged. I'm just treating him as this pretty boy when he's not. Nobody else is. It's just me thinking of Henry Cavill and everybody else sees Geralt.
Right.
Like.
He's a pretty
he does a good job.
Prototypical American man, even though he's British. He's got that look, That's why he's Superman. But yeah, I think he's excellent.
I really.
And
think
he is
so
a
too.
great actor. That's never been a secret. But I think that he just does a really good job as Geralt.
Honestly, I think it's kind of hard for you to be a great actor in something like this too, because like some of the things are a little silly. I think if you were going to compare it to maybe a drama and maybe have like. I can't think of anybody like that's a serious actress or actor. Maybe like you wouldn't have Meryl Streep playing The Witcher and then using I imagine it being hard for a super serious, dramatic actor, any actor. I don't know why I'm specifying, to make like the yellow eyes as intense as they are, because like sometimes it looks kind of goofy. Yeah, and then other times it's like, no, he's a badass. Like, right. and it really, he does a good job, and I feel like that's got to be hard. I
think that he really cares though as well, because he's like a huge fucking really gamer nerd.
Is he really?
Yeah.
That's
and whenever
awesome.
they were there was like rumblings about a Witcher Netflix series years ago.
I got to do it. That's me.
Yeah. He started lobbying on Twitter.
Really?
He was like, I want to do this. Let me do this, please.
I don't care if I'm nothing else. Yeah. I will be Geralt.
So it was
cool.
Definitely like something that he really wanted to do, and he evidently really likes the games and had played them. And
well, I mean, I do think he's doing a good job, and like we were saying, I don't think it's an easy role really, especially to make cool when it's a fantasy kind of story. So I would agree. I think he's doing a great job. Yennefer's growing on me more. I was hard on her because I had this unrealistic expectation for a transformation. It'd be like if I read the Twilight books and book 4 in Twilight, like. Well, I don't need to give any spoilers, but like if
you give spoilers for Twilight,
I doubt
it's not even that good anyway.
I was gonna say I doubt anybody would care, but
they do in the books in the Twilight series. They make Bella's transformation out to be pretty fucking dramatic.
And in the show, it was like, what are you gonna do to this real human?
Right.
Like, how are you gonna make
did like some contouring with her makeup?
How are you gonna make? How are you gonna make Kristen Stewart? That's what it was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not that she's not
certainly
pretty
when you've
or
already
attractive,
had like
but
a
it's like, how are you
5
gonna
movie series and like. well, what are we going to do? Just make it so that you can't recognize the main actress? Like, that would be ridiculous.
That's it. It's like, and short of getting a different actress, that's not upgrading the one. It's not upgrading the first person. It's getting a different person. So, and that's kind of, I guess, the bit of the level of a change I expected was almost a different person, but that's
which is always the problem of having read a book and then seeing a visual adaptation of it.
And I feel like this is the first time I've been so hard on the show about it, which is, I guess, not normal for me. So I need to take a step back and realize what I'm doing.
You usually are pretty forging with that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I don't know why I'm judging it so hard. I think it was maybe what I was saying earlier is just like I've been taking a little bit of pride in just the fact that like we're tackling this new.
That's what I was going to guess, is that you've been really excited about this series, and like being able to get into it, and you're excited about getting into the games at some point and all that. And so
I bought the game.
That would have been I would have guessed that if you hadn't said it.
And I think that's what it is. It's just like I have this mental pride of like, I'm studying the book with Will and we're talking about the show and then when I'm watching the show with other people, and like now that so many people I know are watching the show and getting into the series and stuff, like I have other people to talk to about it, just like on a casual sense. I felt like I had this, like, I need to know the details so that when you talk casually about it, you can tell the other people like what's happening. And I think I'm being too hard on maybe myself and the book, and the show. Sorry, not the book. Just in the fact, like, that wasn't like the book, but like you don't need to, the book. Just pretend like,
right? Yeah.
Not that it's different. Just like we were saying earlier, it's an adaptation, and just don't judge it so hard. Like, why am I judging it so much? Like they're doing a good job. Like you said, and everybody else.
That can be a really difficult thing to do, and that's why. Dumb fandom garbage happens on the internet all the time. It's because people have a hard time separating.
Yeah, but not anymore. I won't.
Well, at least certainly that you've identified it is immediately 5,000 steps further than most of the losers on the internet get.
Yeah, I've made progress. Last week I learned, or 2 weeks ago I learned the structure of a story. And now I've learned to
growth in real time.
Yeah, man. What a show. The Witcher, not our podcast.
All the things that The Witcher has given Jordan.
Yeah. I should write write a paper
write a memoir about what The Witcher has given to you.
Yeah. Send it in.
See if
what if they cast me as like a
Andrzej
dwarf?
Sapkowski says he's just like, fuck that guy.
Yeah, he probably would. He'd be like, you should have only grown from the books, not from the show and the game.
He apparently loves the show.
Oh, he does? Good.
That's what I've seen. Good.
Well, hopefully he did what I did and took a couple steps back and was like, why am I getting pissed that they're loving what I created?
Right. Apparently and this is something because there's a coworker that I have is also into a lot of different stories and stuff like that. And we've talked about how Sapkowski hated on the games before and stuff like that. And he said, well, apparently, like, at the time, he wanted to get more money from CD Projekt Red because his son needed, like, a surgery or something like that. No. Okay. And so he was like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I liked being mad at him. But
I know, it was easier.
But now, like, it's like, okay, so he was, in a bad spot and he needed more money and he felt like he deserved more money. Part of it was sort of like, I mean, don't make the deal if you didn't think that was a good deal for you.
Yeah.
Then go back years later and try to get more. Mm-hmm. But it was like, I guess, like kind of like his only shot, not only shot, but like his best shot at getting more money for like a needed surgery
at the time. Yeah.
And so it was just like a really shitty situation and a really shitty way to go about it. But what can you do at the same time?
Yeah. And
so now that he's past all that, he can be more open towards adaptations, I suppose.
Good. And I'm sure it's bringing people to his books. I'm sure the show.
Oh, absolutely. That's what happens with Game of Thrones. The show comes out, it's crazy. It introduces people to this world and like, oh, well, what's the source material here?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I did. That's how it got me.
Certainly once the first season is over, people are going to be like, well, what does the rest of the story go like? And so now they can read the books and, just like with Game of Thrones.
And manga with anime. Yeah. I do that all the time. I'll get caught up with the anime and just, I need to know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But all right. You want to, just finish the show, right?
Yeah. Last 3 episodes.
Cool. And you guys know how to find us at Instagram and Twitter at ears_stamps, and then dogearsandtimestamps@gmail.com. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. Have a safe New Year's evening.
Definitely. If you want to make it to 2020, don't drink.
Right. Yeah. If you
brought to you by
you
Mad.
have to hear the conclusion of this show at least,
right?
And its covering of The Witcher. So do that, but also drink a lot because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then New Year's Day when you're recovering, you can listen to our book recap of the last 2 chapters. So
that's also happening. So.
Yeah, so that'll be your intro into 20.
Right.
So the end of 100 years of football. Wait, not the end. Not the end. Sorry.
Football's done.
We're done with football.
Whoever wins this Super Bowl is the supreme champion of all time.
That must have something to do with why they chose to pick The Witcher right now at 100 years anniversary.
Because football's over forever, so we need some entertainment.
At 100 years.
Right.
Well, yeah, I think, I'm excited. Looking for the next little bit.
Yeah. We'll see y'all in a couple of days for the book, and then we'll see y'all next week with the rest.
In 20.
I'm Will Hedrick.
I'm Jordan Schaffer.
This is Dog Ears and Timestamps.
WitcherCast.
Go Texans, go Pats, go Packers.